For those of you that might be watching this video for the first time, hi, my name is Matt. I have been living in China for the last 10 years. I'm a traveler cycling around the world on a recumbent trike. Because of this outbreak, me and my family have flown to Chicago. All right, we're on our flight. We had a long ride to USA. Chicago, here we come. If you haven't seen the last few episodes, we are in the house right now. We are self-quarantining ourselves. So today in this video, I want to go through fact-checking, get the record straight, because the comment section on the last few videos have been horrible and people supposing a lot of shit, and it's kind of unnerving. And I'm also going to talk about what we're doing to quarantine ourselves here in this place. And yeah, so let's get into it. So for those of you that, like I said, don't know who I am, my name's Matt. Jayoe is the brand of my world tour. Ja means add, and yo means fuel in China. Jayoe, Jayoe, you'll hear that. It basically means add whatever fuel you need to enhance your life, to live your dream. My fuel is making videos, sharing stories about life and travel. And so I'm trying to infuse that into my life, and I hope all of you can find the fuel that drives you and infuse it into your life. I was in Kuala Lumpur cycling around the world on my recumbent trike, and I also have a daughter and a wife in China, and she was moving into a new apartment. I stopped in Kuala Lumpur and came back to see them and help them move into their new apartment. Coincidentally, it just so happened to be this outbreak in Wuhan that was just getting started, and it was just sort of taking root. And by the time I arrived to China to see them, news has sort of grown, and it was kind of being stated as this might be something that could be serious. And if you go outside, wear your mask. And it was just starting to get people encouraged to watch out for this virus. I decided to record the process. You and I have learned things together through this process. The virus, as it proliferated, revealed things, and we learned things about it. And so as we learned together, I tried to improve. I shaved my beard. I tried to calculate when and how I left the house, how I sprayed things off with disinfectant. And I was learning along the way. We were really self-isolating ourselves in the city of Ningbo that we live, and moving to the new apartment sort of disappeared. That was not important at that time. What was important was that we self-contained our lives. We left minimally, and we tried to keep ourselves safe. Over the course of the last few videos, I think that either there has been a lack of understanding or just plain ignorance to what China is and the type of numbers that we're talking here. So the outbreak happened in Wuhan, and it was during Chinese New Year. So people were packed together, having meals, enjoying time together. This outbreak happened at a wet market, and it started to spread in Wuhan. This isn't a political video. It's not talking about the lack of response time, but by the time China responded to this, the government, they locked down the city. Wuhan and Hubei province. Hubei province has like 50 million people. Wuhan has like 11 million people. Were on quarantine. Are on quarantine. We live in Ningbo, 700 kilometers away from the epicenter of this outbreak. So even when I came to Ningbo from Kuala Lumpur, there hadn't been any real cases in Ningbo, maybe 30 or 40 cases of people that had possibly gotten this. And they were all directly related to people that had come from Wuhan and had integrated and touched people. Whereas our community where we were staying, there wasn't anybody from Wuhan around. There was somebody on our third floor that was being investigated by some medical people because they were going around looking for people from Wuhan, but they weren't here. They were actually in Wuhan, it turned out. So we were clean in our area. I'll just give an example. I like this example because terrain-wise it's very similar. The distance between Wuhan and Ningbo is about 700 kilometers. The distance between Las Vegas and San Francisco is about the same. A little less, actually. But in between, there's the Rocky Mountains. And just like in between Wuhan and Ningbo, there's the Yellow Mountains and the mountain ranges there in China. And so there's a real separation of area. You have to fly a considerable amount of time to arrive in Wuhan, just like you have to fly from Las Vegas to San Francisco. And so we were cautiously looking at the situation and saying, well, let's see how it goes. Let's see how it goes. There was such a frustration with Wuhan and the people flying out of that area and traveling from that area that that's when these flight restrictions started coming in. I had to really think about my family and what was going to happen to us if the whole country was on lockdown. I could see that potentially happening. Today, that hasn't happened yet. Wuhan is on lockdown. Wuhan is on lockdown. If you come from Wuhan, even foreigners from different places, there's a gentleman in the UK that you're following on Channel 4 as his YouTube channel. He was from Wuhan, and when he flew back home, they put him in a 14-day quarantine. He's in an apartment right now sweating out his quarantine. I have friends that have traveled home from Shanghai, Beijing, different parts of Hong Kong, Ningbo, where I am, and they've all gone home, and they've had some of them have been quarantined, but most of them are just on voluntary. Watch yourself. Make sure you kind of. I'm not even going to put words in the mouths of what we were told, because we weren't told anything. These are things I am telling myself. What we were told in the airport was self-monitor. If in 14 days you have flu-like symptoms, call a hospital and tell them that you've been in China in the last 2 weeks and you're feeling this way, and then they'll take care of it. That is all. There was no isolate yourself. There was no lock yourself in your house. There was no deliver food to your house only. There was none of this recommendations, okay? That's not to say that we're not doing that, which I'll get into later. What we're doing for this voluntary quarantine, we are taking steps. The reason I'm doing this video is the comment section on my channel is really, really horrid, and some people. Normally in comment sections, I'm not so frustrated. I can tell there's either a Wu Mao, which is a Chinese version of somebody on the political end of things that's trying to screw with the white guy in China, or try to stir things up. That's their name. It's called Wu Mao, 50 cent or 5 cent army, basically. And I know how to deal with those people. I also know how to deal with the young kids who are probably sitting behind their computer just trying to get people agitated. I know how to do that. But what I'm seeing now is real, sort of a bigotry and a fear that is justified, okay? But it is amplified by, ignorance. It's really amplified by ignorance, the lack of knowledge. And I'm trying to make this video, hopefully, to straighten some things out. There's a real hysteria, and it's an anger, and it's some brutal things. There was one comment today that said that there should be family prisons for people like you. And there was people that said that I'm bringing the virus to America and that we are from Wuhan. And you went to the market in Wuhan and you're coming here, we're going to report you to the CDC, all this crazy stuff. There was this rumor that airports were going to start restricting. American Airlines was saying that we're not going to fly anybody from the mainland. I woke up a few nights ago while we were in China, and I said, Annie, I think that if we wanted to leave, the window for us to get out of here safely and comfortably with our health the way it is going to be closing the window. And we should take steps now rather than wait. If we're going to go, we go. And I told her that if she wanted to stay in China, I'll stay with her in China and my daughter. If you want to leave, let's get the F out of here. And so the first thing that she did is she considered the options, because she has family in China too, and she didn't want to leave them behind. She didn't want to leave China behind. She was, feeling a remorse for this whole situation and frustration. And She was worried about her countrymen and everything, and it was quite beautiful, actually, on retrospect, thinking about it. At the moment, I was a little bit confused that she was not 100% focused on her own health. She was thinking about the whole country. It's kind of lovely in a way. But finally, I said, we're going to go. We're going to go. And she agreed. And so she went online. And her logic was that if we fly back, we're going to do it with as little stops as possible. And we're going to do it business class so that we're isolated from the rest of the plane, so that nobody's going to be walking past us, potentially coughing on us, any of that stuff. We can have our own area to ourselves. There was a couple of direct flights, but there wasn't any direct flights with 3 seats in business class. So she took the next option. Actually, we were looking about maybe just going to LA. Those flights didn't have any seats. Then we were looking to go directly to Detroit, which is where my family's from, and that didn't have any there, and they were very expensive, very expensive. Finally, she found a good deal on 3 available business class seats from Ningbo to Hong Kong, transferring to Chicago, which is where I am right now. We booked that flight right away, and it was for February 1st in the morning, and we were going to have to drive from Ningbo to the airport very early, 1 o'clock in the morning on February 1st. There was talk about restrictions in Hong Kong. There was talk about all these things. There was all these rumors. I was, for one, really nervous about the potential for us to actually get to America, what was going to see us when we got to America. When February 1st did roll around, there was all sorts of buzz, the travel ban being enacted, and the potential for some serious problems for certain people when they got to the United States, quarantine zones being set up and things like that. But still, Ningbo in Zhejiang province was not in the quarantine zone. It was part of mainland China, but there was no ban from anybody coming in from mainland China. There were bans being enacted against people in Hubei province and Wuhan. In fact, China was actually taking people who had exited and flying them back to say, no. You don't go to another country and infect people. We're going to bring you back. And they were actually bringing people back from, I think, Australia and Europe and USA. Ningbo has a population of 8.3 million people. Okay, just my city has a population equal to New York City. Okay, Zhejiang province has a population of 50-some million people. 50 million people. Okay, by the time we left, there was 500 cases of the coronavirus inside Zhejiang. Sounds like a lot, but also you have to put in consideration 50 million people, 500. So I'm not trying to justify anything. I'm just trying to put some things into perspective. It's not as if in that market video that I put out where we went to the market, we went shopping and I was wearing that mask, that we were just brushing arms with the infected. It's zombie apocalypse. The odds of anybody in that market even having it was extremely low, and we were still taking precautions. Sideline story. I had a comment that was lambasting me about how it was guaranteed that one of us, if not all of us, were infected and we're bringing that to the United States. And somebody even said that when we had that pull cart in that episode where we were pulling that cart around to try to put all our stuff in it as opposed to using one of the grocery store's carts, we had a radio flyer, like one of those kids' radio flyers, that the wheels were picking up the ground debris, which could have a virus. If somebody coughs, it falls on the floor, which is very true. I didn't videotape us putting the trailer in the car, so they just assumed that we just threw the stupid thing in the car. But that was not the case. We went through an entire process. I didn't record it because I was involved in the process. We took all the groceries out, sprayed the bags, put them in the back of the car. Then we took the wheels and we, spun the wheels and sprayed the wheels. Sprayed each one, all 4 wheels. sprayed our hands, put the card in the car, went to the house. But you didn't see that. I understand. It's scary. An outbreak is scary. It's like a Hollywood movie. It's that kind of thing that's sort of in our DNA. It's that sort of wolf in the woods, that the eyes and the glowing eyes sort of staring at you, and it's scary, it's gripping. Some of you don't even care about anything here, and you're still gonna lambaste me, but whatever the case, I'm still explaining. When you fly, when you leave a country, when you cross a border, you have a little thing. It's called a passport. In that passport, you were in China, you were in Hong Kong, you're in America. You leave Malaysia, you leave Thailand, you leave Vietnam, you leave, trust me, for those of you that are wondering, I cycled my recumbent trike from China, through Korea, through Japan, back to Taiwan, back to China, back to Vietnam, Laos, Vietnam, and then Cambodia, then Thailand, and now I'm in Malaysia. I know a lot about crossing borders. And as a matter of fact, my passport book has a lot of personality to it. And after every single entry and exit, you get a stamp. You cannot hide where you are going or where you are coming from. It's not possible. Well, maybe one place. I did go to North Korea on a marathon. I ran a marathon in North Korea 6-7 years ago, and they stamped my passport outside my passport. If you want to see, it's a very interesting video. If you've never been to North Korea, which I think most people have not, it was very interesting traveling to North Korea for sure. Anyways, back to the story. So there's no hiding. What we did when we flew, because there's a lot of people out there that are saying that the only reason we were allowed into America the way we were, which I'll get into this whole quarantining thing, or even allowed into America, was because we cheated. And we flew through Hong Kong. And we're rotten. We're sneaks. Well, you can't sneak. You can't sneak past the passport. And even if you tried to, they can match up the ins and the outs. Okay, well, you went in this country and you have to exit. You went in this country, you got to exit. So there's a timeline on your passport. There's no way to hide it. There was no deceit. There was nothing we did that was wrong. In fact, we are doing much more than the recommended at the moment. Through the whole process, we were doing much more that was recommended. We were in Ningbo. This thing was starting to spread, and we had an opportunity to get out healthy. So we took a chance. I think it was a good thing, because right now China is continuing to battle this virus. More flights are being canceled. But I got a comment on my phone. Somebody had just left Beijing on the 2nd. And on the day of the travel ban, came into America. Unlike me, who we just talked to a customs individual, he talked to a CDC, Center for Disease Control individual, and they asked him, have you been to Wuhan in the last 14 days? Wuhan is the focus of this issue. Have you been to Wuhan? Because people that have been contracting it have been related to people who have been related to people inside Wuhan. For example, the transmission in Chicago was a wife that was meeting her husband who had come from Wuhan, and they were husband and wife. So they gave it on to each other. And because the other person had come from Wuhan and was taking care of a sick relative who had the virus. So it was Wuhan to the United States to her husband. So the questions you're asked at the airport are, this guy was, do you know anybody from Wuhan that you've been in contact with in the last 14 days? If you haven't, then we want you to self-monitor. Not self-quarantine, self-monitor. If you get anything in the next 14 days that looks fluish, call a hospital and tell the doctor that you've been in China in the last 14 days. That is what they're telling you. That's it. Okay, so we flew to Hong Kong, transferred. In Hong Kong, we were had a temperature gun put to our head to make sure we didn't have a fever. As I walked out of the Hong Kong gate, I saw tents set up with medical personnel that were ready just in case there was somebody that had a fever to take them behind and take care of them. And then we processed through to the next flight, got on. Some people had masks, other people didn't. We were wearing our masks. We flew off. This was Cathay Pacific, which was a flight airline that was not inside of all the people that were, like American Airlines pilots were saying we're not going to fly from mainland China anymore. But Hong Kong was still flyable. So we flew to Chicago. When we got here, we went through customs. When I walked through the customs line, you know, if you've ever been to the airport from an international flight, it's just this long line. I looked up, there was a screen there. It was saying, you know, watch your produce, don't bring in any foreign produce, you know, agriculture inspection, and hey, coronavirus recommendation, self-monitor for 14 days. If you feel any flu-like symptoms, call a doctor, so you don't go to the hospital and spread it. But call a doctor and tell them that you have flu-like symptoms and you've been in China in the last 14 days. When we progressed through to the man at the customs control booth, I walked up there with me, my daughter, and my wife. He asked us a number of very friendly questions. He looked at my passport, where have you been? And I told him, I've been to Cambodia, Thailand, Malaysia, China, Hong Kong. I said, my wife, and he's like, what about them? Do they live in China? She said, yeah, we live in Ningbo. He's looking at our passports as he's asking us because he's verifying the stamps that are in our passport. Some of you people think that we were like spies or some sort of 007 characters, and we are infiltrating America underneath the guise of coming in from Hong Kong, and that's just not true. We were a connecting flight from China. It's very plainly stamped into our passport. The customs guy asked us about it. He had a daughter the same age as mine, a little bit 1 year older, and we giggled about it. And I even told him, I says, well, do you have any tips? Because, you know, you got a year on me, you know. And Eva was super silly because he was asking Eva what her Chinese name was to verify, and she kept saying her English name. Eva Rose, Eva Rose. Tell him your Chinese name. And for a moment she forgot. She was nervous. But she got it out. And he laughed, and we all laughed. And he said, welcome to America. And we went in and got our bags. When we got our bags, we walked through the final checkpoint where we showed them our quarantine slip where it says, you list, where have you been before you came to America? And we listed China and Hong Kong. He looks at the form, welcome America, bada bing, bada boom, we're out. Now, in the line, in the customs line, it was full of other Chinese people wearing masks. I watched each one ahead of us to try to gauge what we were going to have to go into. And each one was asked a few questions and then prompted through. Was that the right thing to do? I don't think so. I think that they should have provided at least some more guidance. I think they could have given everybody a pamphlet. Anybody with a Chinese stamp in their passport should have gotten a pamphlet. Hi, if you're coming to America from China, here are some things you should do. Isolate yourself as much as possible. Wear a mask as much as possible if you feel flu-like symptoms, obviously. But there should have been a bit more guidance, or a booth set up with a CDC official that everybody has to channel through. But there was hundreds of people in that line, and I'm sure that it's a difficult thing to manage, but it is what it is. So did we break any rules? No. If you reported me to the CDC, it would do no good, because there was nothing that we had done that was wrong. As a matter of fact, we were doing way more than what was told to us, which was self-monitoring. Didn't even tell us to quarantine. It just said, be careful, watch yourself. I have not been to Hubei province or Wuhan. I don't think I've ever been to either. I know I've never been to Wuhan, but I might have skirted Hubei province a number of years ago as I was cycling through China. Ningbo, at the time that we were in Ningbo, and before leaving to come here, was actually a very, very safe option if you were thinking about being in China. During this period of time, it was Chinese New Year. So people were home at that point in time. And Ningbo, in particular, is a coastal city. So during Chinese New Year, all the migrant workers leave. Ningbo was actually a much more safe place than most others because most of the populace had left during the time that I was there. Now, people are returning from Chinese New Year and possibly mingling, and that's where the danger comes into place. One situation, Annie's family owns factories in China. One of the factory workers came back from Chinese New Year, commingled very closely with her friends from the community there, because in fact factory communities are pretty tight. People live around close to the factories, and so there were some cases that were enacted that popped up because of either one of Annie's factory workers or one of her factory workers' friends, and so gave it to like 6 people or something like that, 4 or 6 people. What did China do? They blocked off the entire village, and they posted a notice on the windows. You can't read that in Chinese, but basically it says, 1, the village is locked down. 2, you're only allowed 1 person per household to leave the house once every 2 days to collect groceries for your family. And 3, if you are part of the government apparatus in this area, you are obligated to help the community. So like every village has a village officer and a village political leader, and the government was like, your health takes second chair to all of the people in your community, and that if you're here, you have to be helping people get around, you have to be helping people get fed, and it's your job now to take care of your community. So that was the notice that was in a Haishu. There's been no fatality in Zhejiang province at all. If you guys really want an interesting way to monitor the situation in China with regards to the coronavirus, Johns Hopkins University created this amazing app that correlates all the data and shows you exactly where the pockets of this outbreak are and how they are affecting the areas, how many people have died, how many people have been infected, and the total number as well. I'll leave a link in the description, and I'll see if I can put a link here in the video. But yeah, I think that might be something you guys might find interesting. I find it interesting. Now let's fast forward to today. This is, I think, our second full day of quarantine. And the quarantine is what we've created. It wasn't recommended to us. It wasn't told to us by anybody. But because we're here and we are coming from China, I felt that it was very important that we try to take it easy for the next couple of weeks. I was saying that maybe we'll go to Walmart late. Well, doesn't seem to be necessary because you can order everything online. And I've ordered a bunch of Amazon things that sit down by the back door and then we go and grab it. I've ordered a bunch of things from Walmart. You can get home deliveries from Walmart and home deliveries from Amazon, from Whole Foods and different food places. There's a lot of options to get deliveries, so we've eliminated the need to leave this premises. So what are we doing? I bought a bunch of toys for Eva. She's playing games. We're cooking food. Eva loves to eat and have fun, and we're just playing around and biding our time. When we arrived, another comment that I got was that, how dare you remove your mask? Yeah, you guys aren't taking this seriously. You're just gallivanting around and you remove your mask as soon as you arrive in America. Well, we rented a car. We have to use our IDs to rent the car. Annie's ID is Chinese, so the rental car company knows we're from China. We are being honest with everybody we interact with. We rented the car for more days than are needed for the quarantine. We rented this house for an apartment or whatever for more time than our quarantine. So like the 15th day of our quarantine, we're going to go to Detroit and see my family. If we do come down with some sort of symptom, then the car and the house will not affect anybody else, but they will be part of the decontamination process. Do I think that we're sick? Of course not. But as has been stated in the news and through the comment section, you don't know if you have it in the first 2 weeks before the disease or virus presents itself. We're going to sit around for the next 14 days in this house, buying food online, getting whatever necessities we need, and chilling out. And that's just what we're going to do. I understand, like I said, I've said this, I really want to empathize. One of my dad, before he passed away, one of the most important things that he passed on to me was the idea of trying on somebody else's shoes, putting on somebody else's shoes so that you can understand what they're going through. So I wholeheartedly understand the concerns, the worries, the frustrations that people might be feeling regarding this. Maybe you feel hopeless. Maybe you feel anger towards Chinese, different things. Geez, I want to make a couple more videos actually on this and then finish this up. The next episode I want to make on the effect on the coronavirus effects on the future, my thoughts on that economy-wise and China-wise, and there's some good things that might come out of this in China, and there's some, with regards to improving food safety measures and stuff, but also the economic impact in negative ways. And then another episode I'd really like to do is about bigotry and hate and racism. I've heard a lot of experiences from people that I know in China that are out and that have been out before the virus outbreak, and they're being harassed. And so I'm a little bit nervous. I might have to make a video later about that, because I don't think we'll see as much until this thing starts progressing more, until we're getting out of the house. Right now, we're not really around people at all. So there's no real opportunity to see any sort of bigotry on our, in our face. But so those 2 episodes I'd like to do, and then we'll wrap this kind of story up. Then I'll go back to the traveling videos and my cycling videos, which are now following me in Thailand, because I had to stop those videos. Those videos are actually a month delayed now is where we're at. So yeah, we are self-quarantining. We are sitting in this house. I thought we could go to Walmart at like 3 o'clock in the morning when it was dead, and that could have been an option, wearing a mask, go in there. It wouldn't have been against the law to do that if we wanted to. This, what we're doing right now, is not something we were instructed to do. This is something that we are doing. If that British guy from the UK that you guys are referring to a lot flew out from Ningbo or Shanghai or Beijing to the UK, he would not be under mandatory quarantine. He would be self-monitor 14 days. So maybe that's changed now as things progress and get more advanced, but it certainly wasn't that way when I flew out. So I know a lot of these guys. I've watched a lot of these YouTubers, and so I know, different sorts of people in different sorts of circumstances, and so I'm watching. So anyways, we are just playing around. Eva is joking and singing.
Okay. Okay. 然后呢? Speak English, otherwise people cannot understand.
Today we're gonna put this ball in here, and then you will remember it, okay?
Okay.
Remember.
Stand up.
Oh, stand up.
Okay, stand up. We're just trying to make sure that she's comfortable and healthy and happy. And as soon as this 14 days pass by, we're gonna relax, enjoy our time in the USA, go see my family in Detroit, and live our lives. And I'm very happy that we made this decision, because people in China right now are hurting, and it's not every Chinese person's fault that this is going down. So no, don't hate on Chinese people. You can't judge without understanding. That's why I love travel so much, is because I've been so many places. I've seen things firsthand. It's given me a greater appreciation for different cultures and different people. I have to put the shoes on of some of those people spouting these hateful comments at me, these angry, vitriolic, go back to your country, or you commie bastard, or there need to be prison camps set up for people like you and your whole family. Or, I mean, it almost had me in tears, some of these comments. And I like I said, I have typically a pretty thick skin with regards to most comments. What I'm seeing on the comment section is personal attack after personal attack based on fear and anger. Listen, this virus is not over yet. It hasn't even reached its pinnacle. And we got out before I think we were affected. I really do. When we're going to take our time until we find out that for sure. And this quarantine thing, this was not something that was told to me to do. This wasn't something that was enforced. I don't have a CDC official calling me every 2 days to make sure I'm following the rules. This is a self-imposed 14-day quarantine. And I'm doing it because I want to make sure I don't get you guys sick, just in case. But I'm forcing all three of us to stay in this house and make sure that we don't go out, so that we do justice to this thing. There was nothing wrong with me bringing my daughter and my wife here, so that's about it. Hey guys, I'm sorry this was sort of this way, but I make these videos because I want to share with you guys a part of the world and a part of life that most people don't get to see. And this is something that doesn't happen very often. I was in the middle of it. I was sort of near ground zero in a country that was having this sort of tumultuous thing. And I'd like to share more of this stuff with you. I like that. I think that the more that we see in the world, the more that we understand, the wiser we can be, and the more educated we can make decisions in the future. And a lot of you people who are so fearful and angry at me being here, you were my primary target for showing the world a little bit and trying to dispel rumors about how evil or crazy or horrible the rest of the world is. It's pretty freaking amazing place. I think you can tell from my eyes that I need some sleep, man. So tired. It's funny. The refrigerator was smelling. Annie kept walking past. She was smelling it. The reason I brought it up is because my eyes are red when I looked at it. It made me think about this. And she dropped a piece of glass plate today, and it broke on the floor. I was cleaning it up. I went under the refrigerator, and I swept up this little nugget. It was like a little piece of broccoli. So I went down and I grabbed the little piece of broccoli. I looked at it. That was pot. That was weed. And so Annie, they don't have a lot of weed in China. If you do have it, you're going to get in a lot, and they find you, that you're going to get in a lot of trouble. Like a lot of trouble. So what is that? I says, this is dama. Dama is weed in Chinese. Dama, What the? We need to call the landlord. Tell him that there's weed under the... I says, there's weed under the fridge. What are you going to do? So Lysol, and then took care of that. But just funny. So that's about it. Have you watched all the way? How's it going, guys? You guys are the last ones watching this thing. I think I'm going to try and post this and have it up tomorrow. If you guys are interested in my journey, maybe because if you watched this, maybe you need some context to why I ended up in China. I'm going to link to a video right now about why I moved to China. It's an interesting story, I think it is. So you can listen to that, and if after that you feel like, wow, this is an interesting story, then subscribe to the channel, comment below, and let me know what you think about anything. Try to be nice. Most of you are. It's just the loud minority. It's loud. But thank you so much for all your support. If you do want to support me on my tour or anything around the world, I have a Patreon account. I record daily podcasts about my life and things, and you can listen to those if you join my Patreon. And share this video, because there's a lot of misinformation and fear being perpetuated. Hopefully I provided you with some context, and I hope that you watched this. This quarantine is going to go on and on until it's over. Take it easy, and thank you again so much. And for those of you that are new to the channel, Jayoe. Bye.